Deep in a dry valley, where red earth had been torn and turned by old traps left behind from long ago hunting seasons, the mother elephant lay there, an enormous body imprisoned inside a deep pit, her forelegs sliding into mud, her eyes wide, no longer the gaze of a wild animal but the gaze of a mother pushed to the edge of desperation. At the rim of the pit, the calf stood screaming, its young cry ripping through the forest, striking the mountainside and bouncing back like a plea that had nowhere to go. On the edge of the scene, there were two people. One held a phone high. The screen trembled slightly with his ragged breathing. The viewer count climbed second by second. Comments poured down like a flood. He didn't speak much, only panned the camera, capturing every scream, every violent thrash of the trapped mother's body. In his mind, questions swarmed that had nothing to do with elephants. If I jump in and try to help, who's liable? If she dies, who gets sued? If I do the wrong thing, where does the law stand? The other was a ranger. His shirt was worn, his boots caked with mud, and his hands shook not because of the pit's depth, but because he was being forced to stand still. He looked down, measured the distance, listened to the faint crumble of soil beneath the mother's weight, and knew that one man jumping in alone, no rope, no proper gear, could become the second victim. But to stand and watch felt like betraying his own humanity. Neither of them was evil. The man filming wasn't smiling. He wasn't hunting for a sensational close-up, wasn't zooming in on pain to boast about it. He was simply afraid. Afraid of the razor-thin line between helping and illegal interference. Afraid that one impulsive move could turn him into a defendant. He told himself, "I'm recording evidence. I'm calling more people. I'm making sure no one can say we made it up." And the ranger in that brief sliver of time had to choose between professional protocol and the instinct of a human being. Procedure told him to wait for the rescue team. His heart told him there was no time left. When he unbuckled his belt and tied it fast around a tree, the live stream exploded with screams and arguments. Some praised him as a hero. Some cursed him as reckless. The man filming lowered the phone for a moment, his hand trembling, then raised it again, not to farm views, but because if the worst happened, at least the truth wouldn't be buried inside this pit. After that, the story did not end neatly. The mother elephant survived only because help arrived in time, because people coordinated, because luck didn't break the last thread. The ranger was lightly injured. The cameraman was thrown into a comment war that lasted for days. Some called him cold, the symbol of an era that prefers recording over reaching out. Others said that without the live stream, no one would believe traps like this still existed. No one would know how fast the mother had nearly died. And the question stayed suspended in the air, without a shared answer. Is filming for evidence acceptable when a life is sinking right in front of you? Perhaps the forest does not judge. Only the calf did when it saw its mother hauled up and safe. It stood very still for a long time, as if it had memorized both humans. Each in his own way, each standing on the thin border between fear and responsibility. That night, the forest did not sleep. After the mother elephant was pulled from the pit, the entire valley fell into a strange silence, not peace, but exhaustion. The kind that settles after death has brushed past and then moved on. The mother lay on the slope, breathing heavily, each rise and fall of her ribs making the red dust on her skin tremble. The calf pressed close to her side, its small forehead resting against that massive body. It no longer cried, only shivered, as if terrified that if it stepped away even once, everything just regained would vanish. The ranger sat with his back against a tree, his arm hastily wrapped in cloth, blood seeping through. Only now, when the surge of adrenaline drained away, did the pain begin to take shape, dull but distinct, like the question tapping steadily inside his skull. If I had slipped, if the rope had snapped, if she had panicked, what would be left? He closed his eyes, but the afternoon screams refused to leave his ears. The man who had filmed stood not far away. His phone had been turned off at some point. Battery left. Signal strong, but he did not turn it back on. In the dark, he stared at the pit, its mouth open like a scar in the earth, and for the first time, he understood that what he had recorded was not merely an event, but part of a wild world that moves far beyond human frames. When the live stream clip was reposted, it didn't just go viral, it split people apart. There were furious comments, calling him a bystander, calling him the face of a generation that would rather hold a camera than lend a hand. But there were quieter voices too, pointing out that without proof, no one would believe the trap was still there, that the mother had nearly died. People argued, cited laws, debated responsibility, risk, how far an individual may interfere before authorities arrive. In the middle of that storm, he nearly disappeared. No interviews, no defenses. Only once did he write, "I was scared, but I couldn't turn my back." The ranger read that line on a later morning, when his arm had swollen less, when the mother and calf had been guided to a safer area. He read slowly, then let out a breath. For the first time since that day, he understood he wasn't the only one carrying the weight of that moment. The forest remained. The traps might not be gone. The same situation could happen again with different people, different phones, and decisions no less impossible. There was no neat answer of right or wrong. Only human beings, facing another life, forced to choose within seconds what they might have to live with for the rest of their days. Near dawn, mist began to fall thin, but heavy with the scent of wet earth slipping through the leaves, laying a cold veil over the mother elephant's body, as if reminding everyone that life, though just saved, is still fragile. The calf lay pressed against her, its head tucked near her foreleg, its ears twitching at every smallest sound, as if it still couldn't believe the night had truly passed. The ranger stood, testing his injured arm. Pain made him wince, but it also gave him something unmistakably human, a confirmation that he was still here, still breathing, still able to hurt because he had not turned away. He walked slowly around the site, looking at the pit marked with reflective tape, deep and sheer, a cruel tool shaped by hands that had never imagined the sound of a calf crying for its mother until its throat broke. He crouched and touched the ground, as if trying to memorize the shape of this place. Not for revenge, only to remind himself that conservation work isn't only rescue, it is preventing tragedies like this from happening again, even knowing the road is long and filled with helplessness. In the distance, the man who filmed sat on a flat stone, his back against his backpack. All night he had not slept. His phone screen lit up and went dark again and again, each time another wave of comments, judgments from strangers heavy as stones. At moments he wanted to delete the video, to let everything sink into oblivion. Then he remembered the calf at the rim of the pit, its small legs trembling, its cry breaking out of its young throat if no one saw it. Would it have ever existed in the shared memory of people? When the sun rose above the tree line, the first light struck the mother's body, revealing fresh scrapes, dried mud, and eyes less clouded by panic. She rose slowly, each movement careful, as if the earth beneath her feet could no longer be fully trusted. The calf sprang up at once and followed, pressing close, never leaving her side. There was no cheering, no victory. Only a deep, solemn quiet where humans and nature both seemed to recognize they had just crossed the border of loss. The ranger and the cameraman looked at each other. No one said thank you, no one apologized. Between them existed an unnameable understanding. Each had done what he could, in the way he was able to endure. Tomorrow, the law might still raise questions, the internet might still judge, but here, in this morning wet with mist, life had been returned. And sometimes that is the only answer the forest requires. When the mother elephant began to walk, the forest seemed to step back and make space, not by visible movement, but by a hush filled with reverence. Each step of that enormous body pressed deep into the wet mud, like heavy sentences written straight onto the earth, telling a story no camera needed to verify. The calf walked tight beside her, and now and then extended its trunk to touch her flank, a small but stubborn gesture, like a thread stitching the fear that had just passed to the fragile trust being repaired. The ranger watched until the two silhouettes merged into the trees and dissolved into the growing light. He knew he would return here with teammates, with maps, with plans to remove what traps remained. But this moment, watching a family leave intact, was something he could never fit into any official report. It lay outside forms and numbers, yet it was the deepest reason he chose this work. The cameraman still didn't leave. He packed his gear slowly, as if every motion required reconsideration. In his mind, the comment war still raged somewhere far away, where people could judge without smelling the mud, without hearing the broken breathing of a trapped animal. But here, among trees, he understood that some moments cannot be reduced cleanly to right and wrong. There is only whether you dare to face your choice. Before leaving the valley, he looked back at the pit one last time. Sunlight cut down into the bottom, revealing its terrifying emptiness. He didn't record, didn't photograph. He only stood still, letting the image burn itself into memory like a reminder that next time, if possible, he wanted to arrive before the moment that forces people to choose between filming and reaching out. The forest slowly returned to its ordinary breathing. Birds began calling. Wind moved through leaves. Elephant tracks would fade with time. But the question that afternoon left behind would not vanish easily. It followed each person out of the forest into their separate lives, carrying answers that were never complete. Perhaps, in this world, compassion does not always appear in the same shape. Some people dirty their hands to pull a life from a deep hole. Some people preserve the moment so the world cannot say it never happened. The afternoon stretched on slowly, as if the forest were deliberately extending time to let everything settle. Sunlight rose high, drying the mud clinging to the pit walls and revealing scratches, rusted metal hooks, the mute evidence of a nameless threat. The ranger returned one last time with the support team. Tied warning tape marked the coordinates. Every movement was practiced, exact, yet inside him, his heartbeat stayed slower than usual, as if part of him remained with the mother elephant who had just walked away. The cameraman left the forest when the sun had tilted westward. On the red dirt road, he walked alone, his backpack heavier not because of equipment, but because of unnamed thoughts. His phone buzzed non-stop. Interview requests, demands for explanations, private messages from strangers saying they cried watching the clip. He did not answer right away. There are moments that, if turned too quickly into words, become thinner than what they truly are. That night, he posted a short note, no video, no hashtags. Only a few lines. That fear is not the same as indifference. That responsibility sometimes makes people stand still even when the heart wants to rush forward. And that he hoped for a day when traps would disappear before anyone ever had to tap go live. The ranger read it later, in the small room of the conservation station. He folded his phone, looked toward the dark where the forest thickened. In his mind appeared the calf pressed against its mother's side, simple, persistent, like a reminder of the most basic truth. A life saved is not the work of one person alone, but of choices layered together, imperfect though they may be. The next day, the elephant tracks had already begun to fade. The forest continued its cycle indifferent, but not cruel. And people each carried a fragment of that afternoon. One carried a wound that would heal. One carried a video that could not be erased. And others carried only a quiet question. If it were you, what would you do? That question does not need an instant answer. It exists to remind us that between chasing views and getting your hands dirty, sometimes the distance is not morality, it is fear. And courage, each person learns it in a different way. If this story made you pause and think for even one breath, please, like to spread it, share so more people can see it, subscribe to stay with more human stories like this, and comment to tell us where you would stand when that moment arrives.